Hello everyone, I'm Gary Dowdy with Pervasive Path Consulting. Joining me today for this webinar is Brian Stein, also with Pervasive. Pervasive is a mobile strategy and technology consulting firm. Our approach to developing a mobile strategy is informed by our mobile experience. We've led mobile implementations of mobile banking projects at 40-plus banks and credit unions across North America, including 8 of the top 25 financial institutions. To date, our solutions have enabled more than 500 million SMS, mobile web, and application transactions, allowing customers to view account balances, transaction history, the ability to transfer funds and pay bills, and remotely deposit checks. We helped a major retailer evaluate the use of ruggedized equipment versus smartphones to select the optimal platform in support of a field service mobile application, which resulted in $35 million in immediate equipment and service savings. We created a mobile strategy and roadmap for a Fortune 50 insurance provider to identify and prioritize mobile initiatives across their lines of businesses, including the evaluation of the competitive landscape, understanding the organization objectives and capabilities in order to determine prioritization, and assessing the complexity of implementation based on the required integration with their back-end systems. And we developed and deployed mobile systems for a number of manufacturing and distribution facilities across the U.S., from automating plant operations to enabling field sales personnel. This webinar is about creating mobile strategy for your enterprise, or if the focus is a bit more specific, the same philosophy works for your division, a business unit, or even a product line. The mobile channel has seen more change in the last couple of years than any other channel, and I'm sure the next 2 years should be just as interesting. Perhaps this is your situation. Your organization has silos of mobile initiatives across business units, some with and without IT's blessing. Coordinating business objectives and strategic plans feels like the late 1990s with the boom of the Internet. Some business units are ahead of others, and IT is yet to establish firm guidelines. As such, it feels like your company is not on the same page. Employees want to use their own device to access corporate email and other corporate information. And when it comes to creating the business case, you keep asking yourself, is this about customer acquisition and revenue, or simply ease of information access and building customer loyalty? As a result, you're not sure where to start or which path to take for your mobile roadmap. Well, hopefully this webinar will help.
To create an enterprise mobile strategy and corresponding roadmap, we are going to walk you through 4 components today. First is setting your mobile objective. To do that, you'll need to understand your company strategy and how it relates to online and offline channels in order to support a holistic customer experience across all touchpoints. Then, you'll want to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with mobile and how you plan to measure it? Secondly, you must consider who you are creating the mobile solutions for. Who is your audience and what job do they want to accomplish with your mobile solution? Next, you should identify what unique value or capabilities your organization can provide in order to differentiate your mobile offering. How do you provide that functionality designed appropriately for the mobile channel? Then, how do you go about prioritizing the solutions you've identified? And last, you must spend time thinking about how to communicate and coordinate your activities. One very important point here. While we do have these in order for a reason, that does not mean you'll think about and work on these components in serial. In fact, as each step informs the other, you may want to iterate through these steps multiple times.
Okay, so let's drill down into each of these 4 components. Setting your mobile objectives. As Brian just mentioned, your mobile strategy must be in context with your overall company strategy. Naturally, we are making an assumption here that you have access to all or part of your organization's objectives, and how they may or may not be relevant to your mobile initiatives. If you don't have access to this information, get it, as you're going to need support from the various parts of the organization. Having a plan with a solid foundation is a great way to increase your chances of success. Most corporate objectives are fairly lofty and lack specifics until they reach the business units. So while company goals such as grow earnings 20% or increase customer satisfaction by 5% may be important, and you may want to attach your initiative to one or more of these, they're hardly detailed enough. So here's how to help narrow the focus and set the right context. I'm going to use customer as example, but this could just as easily apply to employees, partners, etc. You need to understand the existing customer touch points, such as how do you interact with your customers today? How would you like to interact with your customers? Is this how your customers would like to interact with you? How do your competitors interact with their customers? And so forth. The goal is to provide a holistic customer experience. Is the customer experience the same across all your channels? For example, will I get the same order confirmation from your online channel as I get from ordering via the 800 number? Does the call center see my activity regardless of its source, online, mobile app, or phone? Customers can quickly spot silos, and those silos can lead to a very bad experience. And no business case is complete without a competitive analysis and positioning of your mobile goals against that of others in your industry. Next, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with mobile? Is this simply a Me Too offering where mobile is just a checkbox on your to-do list? Or do you want to accomplish specific goals such as creating a brand extension, improving your customer service, retaining or acquiring new customers, generating revenue, or improving processes and or trying to reduce cost? For example, moving customers to the lowest cost or optimal channel may be one objective. To do this, you should ask yourself, what transactions are best suited for what channel? Can I drive high transaction costs to a lower cost channel? For example, in banking, this might mean, can you encourage customers to check a balance or to see if a check has deposited via online or mobile instead of calling customer service, which is a much more expensive transaction? On the flip side, you need to ask yourself, are there cases where you prefer live contact versus customer self-service? Does a live contact present an opportunity to upsell, cross-sell, or otherwise grow the value of that customer relationship? These are the type of factors that should play a part of your objectives. As with any goal, you need to spend some time setting success metrics and understanding how you will measure success against that success criteria. I've seen many business cases where the logic of defining and obtaining success were not grounded in reality. Up front, you need to set some targets and get feedback from the various parties to ensure you have the right benchmarks. Now, not all projects will have an ROI calculation. And in fact, a June 2011 survey by Forrester, of all the participants, only 33% had ROI as a calculation in their mobile activity. Regardless of whether you're measuring ROI or not, you need to have some key performance indicators to track and measure success.
Now that you've defined your goals for mobility, it should hopefully be clear that the only way you can achieve those goals is if people actually use your mobile solutions. Understanding your customer and how they want to interact with you is always a key concept in business. But when we're talking about mobile, there's a personal element to the way that people relate to their phones, which makes it all the more important in this space. People tend to develop personal relationships with and expectations of their phone. And why shouldn't they? It's the one thing that we probably spend the most time with in our lives, more than our keys, our wallets, and for some of us, possibly more than our families. This personal connection, combined with the immediacy of mobile interactions, is why it's so important to understand your target users and how they want to interact with your organization. You need to identify and understand your target user base. Are you going to build a solution for a particular segment of the market, or is mass appeal critical to achieving your goals? For internal B2E strategies, your user base may be defined for you, such as the entire sales force or all field service workers. But this only serves to identify the group. You still want to get an understanding of those audiences. Now, you need to ask, within the groups that you've identified, what segmentation exists? One of the most obvious ways your target user group may be segmented is by device type. Outside of internal B2E initiatives, where you may have a defined captive user group, it's not likely that you can count on everyone having the same phone with the same operating system. In fact, with the increasing consumerization of IT, it's even less of a certainty within the enterprise. Internal initiatives have other considerations, both organizationally and technical, which can also segment the user base. Organizationally, if your group spans functions, divisions, regions, or otherwise, you'll need to understand the impact of these differences in culture, objectives, regulations, and policies, and how those differences affect the user's perspective and requirements, allowing you to segment them accordingly. From a technical perspective, you may need to segment your target users based on system and infrastructure differences. For example, are some users on Exchange while other regions use Lotus Notes? Do you have an integrated directory and authentication protocol across the organization? And is the data your users will be accessing based off a single global instance, or do your users access information which spans multiple back-end repositories? Whether an internal or external strategy, you can see how technical segmentation will impact not only users' expectations and behavior, but will also drive a number of architectural and design considerations. For example, when launching a mobile banking solution, are you targeting your entire customer base or just those customers who have previously enrolled in online banking? This may not only change your strategy, but also whether you use online banking credentials as a user authentication mechanism. For customer-facing strategies, you may not know as much about the users as individuals, but you can still use demographics and other data to inform your understanding of any differences which may impact their usage. Once you've identified and segmented your target user group, you can utilize an understanding of these groups to help inform your strategy with regards to what type of solutions you should develop. Some of the decisions which will be driven by this understanding include whether to build an SMS, mobile web, or app-based solution, or perhaps some combination of the three. What device types and form factors will you target? When will you use SMS or push notifications in order to initiate interactions with your users? How will you prioritize initiatives or projects as you develop your roadmap? And within individual releases, what capabilities or functions will you prioritize? How will you define your user interface, marketing and adoption plans, end user training and support, and so on? Clearly, understanding your target user base has a wide-ranging implication, both for your mobile strategy and beyond. Now that you have a better understanding of what you want to achieve and who you are building your solutions for, you can move along and finally start thinking about what you want to develop and prioritizing those releases across a roadmap for your organization. Certainly, the first place to start is focusing on the end user. As discussed on the previous slide, understanding your users and the job they want to accomplish is important. But next, you'll want to start identifying what unique value or capabilities your organization can provide in order to differentiate your offering. Do you have relevant data you can present or services you can offer? Without these capabilities, you'll likely end up with marketing or brochureware, which provides limited value to the user and is quickly forgotten. Perhaps this is why 80% of applications in the marketplace today are downloaded once and never used again. Differentiation is driven by understanding what systems and information you can make available to your users to add value to their experience. Once you understand your capabilities, you'll want to compare that to your users' expectations. Use stakeholder interviews to understand what perspectives your users have on the systems or data they believe would be useful to have access to and how they expect to interact with them. Also, the competitive analysis you've done should help to inform the process and serve as a source for solution ideas. It's a safe assumption that your users' expectations are being anchored by those same competitive offerings, and it will be important to meet, if not exceed, those expectations. Once you have an idea of the capabilities you want to deliver, you can start thinking about how to best deliver them. It's here that we finally begin thinking about whether we're building a mobile website, application, or SMS or messaging solution. Despite what Apple's marketing department would have us believe, mobile is about more than just apps. A well-defined mobile strategy will look at all methods of delivering a solution. In many cases, we actually recommend launching a mobile website before launching a mobile app for the iPhone or any other device. Having a mobile-friendly site first ensures you've thought through repurposing your content and the end-user experience in order to deliver your message and value proposition. This also provides the added value of being able to glean analytics about your users as to the type of device and what pages they are viewing on your site, so that you can use the data to create a fact-based method for your roadmap. Wouldn't it be helpful to have data telling you that 70% of your target base is coming from an Android device before you decide to bet the farm on an iPhone app? Additionally, as HTML5 becomes more prevalent, it's becoming increasingly possible to deliver a rich, interactive user experience over the web while still supporting a variety of device types. For transaction-oriented or other specific interactions, you may want to consider avoiding the overhead associated with either a mobile website or an app. For example, if I'm standing at a register in a store and want to get my account balance in order to validate that I have sufficient funds to make a purchase, it's a whole lot simpler for me to send a BAL SMS command to your shortcode and get an immediate response. Compare that to me launching your application, logging in, possibly answering any security challenge questions you may ask me, then navigating to my account list, and finally clicking through to the specific account I'm interested in. You can see how SMS makes a faster, more streamlined approach. Finally, once you've identified the mobile solution and delivery platform, you can begin thinking about the mobile appropriate use cases. A critical concept for our clients is the realization that mobile is not an extension of a website. In fact, it's the opposite, and the detailed, granular functionality that makes sense in a desktop application or website do not necessarily translate to the mobile channel. You should focus on high-value, common transactions and keep it simple. Mobile is all about immediacy. As an example, we worked with a large Midwest bank to convince them not to incur the cost of providing 2 years of transaction history via the mobile app. The reality is nobody's going to scroll through 2 years' worth of data on their phone, and providing it can result in a degraded app performance and user experience. As you iterate through the above analysis, you will hopefully identify a number of solutions that your organization wants to or needs to deliver. At this point, you can begin the process of prioritizing those differentiated solutions in order to create a roadmap of projects over time. Prioritization should be based on a number of factors, including the relative business need and market opportunity. But you should also look at the ease of implementation and consider the low-hanging fruit first. Look at the effort required to integrate with back-end systems and consider the learning curve for your organization, and perhaps choose an application that will allow you to gain experience and perspective before going to market with your key offering. The roadmap cannot be developed in a vacuum and needs to consider a number of factors across the organization. Are major system updates or enhancements planned? And will these changes have an impact on your mobile solution? Or can you obfuscate the changes through middleware? The point is that you don't want to develop a solution against an interface that will be changing a month after you launch. Also consider the availability of resources. Do you have sufficient bandwidth across both the business and technical teams to define and deliver a project during the proposed window? And finally, consider other change management considerations that are going on across the organization. You don't want your solution to compete with the attention of your target users and which could impact adoption. For instance, you don't want to launch a new iPad sales catalog at the same time as a CRM solution is being rolled out to the sales force.
The last of our 4 components, coordinate delivery of your initiatives across the organization. This is where the rubber meets the road. To get everything right in the previous steps requires inclusion of the right individuals and groups. This exercise is where you learn what's ahead of you when it comes time to execute your initiative, not to mention on how to set expectations with your boss and others. You start out interviewing key stakeholders for input and ideas for your projects, what issues or obstacles lay ahead of you, and so forth. This is also where you begin to build consensus for your initiative. People love to be included on projects, and in most cases, you will quickly learn whether you have an advocate, a blocker, or other. Done right, you want all the stakeholders on the same page with your mobile strategy. They don't necessarily have to agree 100% with your roadmap, but you do not want them undermining your efforts either. While not comprehensive, the list of stakeholders might look like this: IT, marketing, product, systems group, or sometimes called architecture, training, support, sales, finance, and accounting. And of course, your boss and your boss's boss. Each stakeholder is important, no matter their position in the organization. For example, one project I worked on, a sales rep in the Northeast had as much influence on our business unit president and the CIO than anyone else on the team. If we had misread that influence, he could have shut the project down or asked for a change in project leadership. A painful lesson was on another project. At the onset, the CFO was on board. He knew the rough cost estimates, the capital requirements, and the ongoing expense for the effort. But between the start of the planning exercise and towards the end, some events changed his mind. The team failed to stay in touch with his position during the exercise. After we got the plan completed and everyone to sign off, including the company president, the CFO balked and the project got put on hold. This is where a governance process can help you avoid some pain and increase your project success rate. Most large organizations have governance rules established for running projects within a business unit or across lines of multiple businesses. Such processes will help you avoid multiple apps in the market with similar or overlapping functionality. For example, my insurance provider has 4 apps in the iTunes store. You almost have to be an underwriter to understand which one of those to download so I can actually interact with it. Governance will help you ensure consistent use of your brand and consistent user interface standards. From a development perspective, it will help you encourage code reuse and sharing of best practices. And of course, you will want to develop in-house mobile project management expertise and to coordinate the App Store submissions across the various app stores. If your organization does not have these, send Brian or I a note and we'll be happy to point you to some great reference information. For large or diverse projects, a steering committee is usually formed to formally represent the interests of the various stakeholders, usually the different lines of businesses and the functional departments. Like a board of directors, you need to spend time and focus to ensure you have the right communications cadence for all the members. And more than likely, you'll start out with a broad, ambitious plan that will begin to get narrowed down as it makes its way through the funnel. That's okay, and that's expected. You have to start somewhere.
On a final note, before we open the session to Q&A, Pervasive has built all these lessons into our methodology. The duration of this process, whether you use Pervasive to facilitate your strategy definition or develop it internally, may last from a few weeks to a few months, depending on the size of your organization and the availability of time and interest of those involved. I'll cover each of these phases in a bit of detail so you can understand typical activities. Assess the current environment and any mobile projects. This includes what we just talked about: conducting stakeholder interviews, understanding your corporate or business unit channel strategy, both online and offline, creating a high-level assessment of the competition, identifying some industry leaders and best practices, and spending some time on your organization's unique value for the mobile end user. Next, strategize to define a mobile position based on the above work and understanding. Here, you will consolidate feedback from stakeholder interviews, identify the key themes, complete the competitive analysis and industry analysis, validate the unique value based on the above, and prioritize features and business technology requirements. Now, you are ready to create recommendations based on your finding, executive input, and best practices. You will make business or process and technology recommendations, provide or accept input on technology architecture, and establish a baseline for success measurement. Now it's time to review with your boss and the decision makers, which may include some of the steering committee. It's here that you want to ensure you have alignment and consensus and refine based on their feedback. And last, it's time to broadly socialize with stakeholders and other interested parties. We recommend providing a formal readout of the strategy and recommendations in order to get all concerns and obstacles on the table and addressed publicly. This will help establish the authority for you to execute on your plan. This concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for your interest and participation. I will now turn it over back to Gary to wrap things up.
Thank you for attending. A replay of this webinar and a copy of the presentation are available on our website at www.pervasivepath.com. If you have any questions for us, please email us at info@pervasivepath.com or call us at 1-800-975-6567. Thanks, and have a good day.